Good evening. Welcome to our huge audience here this evening. And have our regular meeting and call the meeting to order. I ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Terry?
Here.
Councilmember Budge? Here. Councilmember Gatewood is absent at this time. Vice Mayor Sander is also absent. Mayor McGarvey?
Here.
Thank you.
And I ask our city clerk to announce the meeting video recording and playback schedules, please.
The meeting of the Rancho Cordova City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air on Thursday, March 21st at 9 a.m. and Saturday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch. A copy can also be ordered from the City Clerk's Department, and a webcast of this meeting will also be available on the city's website within 48 hours of adjournment of this meeting.
Thank you. I'm going to call our police officer, Lewis, to lead us in the pledge, and I invite the audience to remain standing for the invocation, and that will be led by Chaplain Walt Little.
Thank you, Mayor. If you'd all please join me in the pledge. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The poet Rumi wrote, "Out beyond the judgment of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." God of unconditional love of all creation, may the power of this simple poem settle into the deepest recesses of our hearts, that we may hear in it the invitation not to escape the obligations of this world, but rather to transcend the confines of our own shortcomings and earthly desires. Prodigal God, may we be at peace in the knowledge that your home is our home, that the door is always open, and that no matter who we are or what we do, somehow we are still loved. And oh, by the way, I have it on good authority that your pictures are on God's refrigerator. Amen.
Very good. Okay, we have item number 5, the presentation, and I call on Robert Sanger and Renee John for the FCCP. And you can tell everybody what that means.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Robert Sanger, I'm the Executive Director for the Folsom Cordova Community Partnership. And this is Renee John. She is our Director of Programs, and she oversees our youth programming at our job center. And we're here today to provide a brief update on our youth mentoring program that is partly funded through our community development block grant that we get through the city of Rancho Cordova, and our youth career centers, which are funded through the community enhancement funds through the city of Rancho Cordova. So our group mentoring program provides middle school and high school students with caring adult mentors who will engage youth in activities and curriculums related to social emotional skill building, career exploration, and financial literacy to improve economic opportunities for low-income, high-need youth living here in Rancho Cordova. So here's one of our groups. It's our girls group at Mills Middle School. There. And then here is a picture of our Peter J. Shields boys mentoring group. These are just a couple of the groups that we have going on. We also have our Youth Leadership Council, which is a mix of middle school and high school youth. And they primarily focus on opportunities to do community service projects, as well as a lot of peer-to-peer mentoring that happens in that group as well. And that is in partnership with the Police Activities League. So students who participate in these groups will graduate with improved social-emotional skills, an informed career direction, and an increased understanding of financial concepts. Studies show a range of benefits for students the earlier they identify a specific career goal or aspiration, including increased academic performance and perseverance. So we really want to reach these students as early as we can and help them think about their career opportunities. Additionally, low-income, high-need students often have a narrow understanding of their career options and limited role models for healthy social emotional skills and financial literacy. And our goal is to connect them through our group mentoring program. With intentional exposure to a range of career options, social emotional skill building activities, and financial literacy training, students will develop career and self-sufficient goals that with the increased capacities to achieve them. In addition to the groups meeting on a weekly basis, we also have a field trip option for the group as well. So some of the field trips the field trips happen on the 10th week, and some of the educational field trip options include a trip to the Folsom Lake College Rancho Cordova Extension, Soil-Borne Farms, and also the California North State University College of Medicine. So the photo here in this slide is actually a photo from one of our mentoring groups at the Rancho Cordova Extension of Folsom Lake College. Here's one of our groups at Soil-Borne Farms. And then also they have an opportunity to do a community service project. So some of those examples are included here is we had a group that made Valentine's Day cards for children at local hospitals. We also had some of them decorating placemats for the Meals on Wheels program. And then some of them even made scarves for senior citizens and they got to go and gift those scarves to them at a local senior community. So mentors in the program are recruited from the community and go through the following screening process. So we do an orientation with them. They also fill out a mentor application. We do a reference check and then a background check. And then they go through kind of a crash course 2-hour mentoring training, and we continue to support them beyond that throughout the course of their group. And then we also take an opportunity when they're finished with their commitment to appreciate them, and here's some of the mentors and the appreciation event that we did for them. So now I'm going to pass it over to Renee John, and she's going to talk a little bit about our youth career centers that are funded through the community enhancement dollars.
Thank you. So we developed the Youth Career Center proposal last year, and it was based on meeting with the administrators of Kinney and Cordova High School and finding out what their highest needs were on campus. And what they indicated to us was a need for students to be able to develop resumes, have assistance with job application. A lot of them needed to work part-time to support their families, and just provide additional income into the families. So that's where the proposal was born last year, and it has been a great success. So some of the activities we do at the Youth Career Centers are helping youth develop career pathways. We do a lot of resume building. We do help them with job readiness, like learning how to interview or do an online job application. And we also do a fair amount of them just coming in to ask questions. Some of them that have become employed or who are were already employed, just don't know how to navigate some of the things that come up on the job. So we do a fair amount of helping coach them through that. Here's a detailed description of the services we provide. A lot of the youth do not know what they want to do, so we do some career exploration activities. And these include doing career interest assessments where they answer a series of questions, and then it will produce a result that indicates what kind of jobs they might be good at, and then it will link directly to jobs that are available in that field and the educational pathways for them. Again, we do a lot of resume development and soft skill attainment, interviewing practice, a lot of assistance with online job applications. This is, again, some evidence-based research on what works for job training, and it states, again, that youth that have a higher exposure to a range of career and higher education outcomes do better. And that is basically based on, there's a generational propensity to do what you've been exposed to. So if you've grown in a low income or disadvantaged home and you've only been exposed to limited educational or employment options, that's all you see for yourself. So we are trying to break that cycle and expose these youth to a wider range of career and higher education opportunities so they can see themselves in different fields. Here's a picture from the Youth Career Center at Cordova campus. We're also on the Kinney campus. It shows one of our youth specialists working with some of the youth on site. This is another one of our career mentors working one-on-one with one of the youth in the Kinney location. And there's some information below. We have, since the start of this program year, created 51 resumes, developed 27 comprehensive career plans, and done 13 career interest assessments. And then you can see on this page where we have the total number of youth served. So to date, we have served a combined 91 youth that are unduplicated with a total of 216 visits to the youth career centers. They've been a smashing success. And 11 of the youth have obtained jobs since the start of this school year, so we are delighted at that. And we have a little fun at the same time. So thank you for your support and the funding for that endeavor. It's been very successful, and both of the high school administrators are very supportive of the program.
All right, any questions, anyone?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So on the last thing, the career education, what's OWLS? Somebody had on a badge that said OWLS.
Oh, what is OWLS? Do you know?
Is it AWOL?
No, I thought it said OWLS.
We can go back. I don't know.
It was just it was kind of like a handmade badge,
Let me see if I can find it.
right there.
Yeah, it does say
Oh,
owls.
it might be a sports team type of thing. It might be a sports team. maybe?
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay,
Soccer or something?
it could be. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not familiar with it.
So on the mentoring program, does it really work to mix the junior high and the high school kids?
In the youth leadership program?
Yeah.
We found it to be very beneficial because there is some peer-to-peer mentoring that can go on where the older youth in high school can mentor the younger youth in the middle school. And we only do that in the youth leadership program, though.
Okay, no, I was just curious. Believe me, I've got 6 ranging in ages from 12 to about to be 18, and I get the relationship building thing. I just, I've wondered because some of our, like our youth at City Hall, we have the junior high and the high school mixed up together. And I've always wondered what's the dynamic like when they're in a group setting, you know? So, there was a slide where they were playing a game. Is that a specific targeted game or is it just a regular board game? Do you,
It's a payday game, and it's based on career exploration and also financial budgeting.
is it available on the market?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Payday?
It's a payday, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game.
Okay.
We got it through Amazon.
Okay. And then when you talked about serving seniors, The Meals on Wheels, was that the local Meals on Wheels program?
Oh, well, when we made the scarves for senior citizens, it was actually for a senior home for Casa Coloma,
Oh,
was
great.
where they were delivered.
Okay,
And then the placemats were
Placemats
for
for
the
Meals on
local Meals on Wheels.
great, super, okay. Wonderful, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Donald?
Looks like San Juan High is the Owls.
The owls.
Okay, now we know. There's someone for the Owls
I
that
believe
goes to
I
Kinney High
got
School.
to it, but I found the logo, and I'm pretty sure it's San Juan High.
Is
Transferred.
it soccer? Or-
It's no, it's the
It's
school's,
their mascot.
it's their
Oh,
mascot.
okay.
That's pretty much what it was.
Okey dokey.
Took me a minute. No, thanks for everything that you're doing. I know we're still working on the college savings accounts and some of the other things that I think dovetail nicely with all of the other things that you're doing. So just keep up the good work, and we'll keep trying to fund you.
Thank you.
So-
Yes, we're looking forward to doing an update about the college savings accounts in the near future. So
Yeah, I mean, and again, thank you for your flexibility. I mean, some of these are ideas that you've brought to us, and then some of them are our harebrained schemes that we bring to you and ask you to figure out how the hell to do them or heck to do them. So we really appreciate your willingness to kind of roll up your sleeves and try stuff that maybe you haven't done.
Thank you.
Or that complement other things that you are already doing, but appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Yes, and I would just mention, if you hopefully have seen the Good Day Sacramento coverage or the Grapevine Independent coverage of the murals that were done at our Family Resource Center, I would definitely invite you to come out and see them live. They are absolutely gorgeous, and we couldn't have done that without community enhancement dollars as well. So thank you so much.
So do you want to provide the address so that, oops. Do you want to provide the address so that people who want to go do that could do that?
Absolutely. So our Family Resource Center address is 10665 Coloma Road, and we are at Suite 200, but the murals are actually in the hallway.
Long hallways.
Yep, that goes to the suite.
Great, all
Yes.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question about the career fields. How do you get the kids who are so interested in doing something with their hands? I mean, a mechanic, car mechanic, someone with electricity, someone who's a plumber, someone, is that part of all that? Is that any of the high school, junior high, that you can get some help with them on that? Because I know it seems like there's less opportunity for them to do things on their hands. People are pushing for college when it's good, but maybe some people are not destined for college.
Yes. So one of the career interests we do with them, will rank them on a variety of categories, and one of them is realistic occupations, which are working with your hands. And if they test high in realistic occupations, it generally is something like what you're talking about, and then it will link to the kinds of jobs that they'd be good at. And then we talk to them about the different training opportunities that are available for that. Through our job center, once they turn 18, if they're not planning to go to college, they could potentially receive a training scholarship for a short-term training in something like welding or construction or something like that, that would give them a certification and would help them earn higher wages than just starting at the bottom and working their way up. So we talk about those career pathways.
Well, that's good, because I know that some of the pay that is made to welders and to mechanics and plumbers like that, they are paid fairly well, but they have to have the skills. So, they can go through what you have offered them, and that's great. So anything else we can do to help besides the revenue, I mean, that's something you have to have, no matter what you're doing. But I'm glad that it's as successful for you as it has been.
Thank you.
And it's a really good point, because they have such a successful program in welding at Kinney, and the construction class at Cordova is extremely active.
Those are growing occupations.
And in demand, and a individual can make a very good living wage on them. And so, college isn't always the only option. And so we want to give the youth an opportunity to explore what all of their options are. So,
Very good.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much. All right. And public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council for any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time by completing and submitting a speaker card to the city clerk. For items on the agenda, speakers will be called up to the podium by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. Speakers are encouraged to keep comments to 3 minutes or less and to state name and community of residence. Under the provisions of the California Government Code, the City Council is prohibited from discussing or taking immediate action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency value or the need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. Do we have any cards?
I do not have any speaker cards.
Anyone in our public out there that wishes to speak? Well, I guess we will go on then. Council reports. Donald?
Everyone came to hear this, right? That's why the big crowd, right? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, a couple of trips that I've taken recently. One was to attend the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting for the National League of Cities that I serve on. Great discussion. There was a lot of conversations around opportunity zones and how different cities were gearing up to try to get at capital for different projects within their areas. I believe we have 5 census tracts, 5 opportunity zones or whatever. Many right around our civic center and project that we're looking at. I didn't get to stay for the rest of the week to attend the lobbying meetings and things like that, so I really came in for the day to make sure that I was at that meeting. But it was a great conversation. Trying to remember, the chairs now are a council member from Mesa and a council member from Maryland, and I'm blanking on the city right now. And then this past weekend, Garrett and I attended what usually is the Local Government Commission's annual summit in Yosemite, but this year it actually fell on the same day as the CalCog conference. So they actually canceled the CalCog conference and put it together with both of them. So the attendance was about double what it usually is. So yeah, so it was the combined CalCog and Local Government Commission annual summit, or actually what do they call it? The Leadership and Policy Conference. There was a lot of talk around housing. Senator Wiener, who had the zoning bill from last year, came and spoke. And what's really fascinating is the things that he's trying to make stop cities from doing, like zoning single family right next to, large or high use mass transit areas, is something that we just would never do, right? All of the spots that we have that would be the our multifamily areas and things like that we would want to do. It's just fascinating to hear that there are cities out there that decide that we want 1 acre lots right next to a light rail station or a BART station or things like that. So it's kind of fascinating. There was a lot of conversation around housing. There was even I don't know if anybody had ever met Glenda Humiston, who used to be the state rural development director. She's now vice president of agriculture and natural resources for the UC system wide, and she came and spoke about utilizing wood products that are actually reclaimed, so trees that fall down, things like that, grinding them up and using them as some sort of building product that's actually stronger and less and resists fire better than steel. Yeah. And you can actually build, I believe, up to 9 stories with it, and it reduces the use of carbon. It doesn't catch on fire as easily, and I don't understand how wood product doesn't catch on fire easily.
Compressed.
Yeah, well,
It's like PTFR.
yeah. So some really fascinating things coming down the pike on all of these. Trying to think if there was anything else really. Christopher Cabalin spoke and talked about their micro transit system that I think we really should try to take a look at some of those things. And I know RT are still our provider out here, but the usage that they've got among lower income disabled and senior citizens in using their Via vans and their bike shares and everything else, obviously, that we've been trying to do for years here. But was very, very impressed with that. I think that's pretty much it. There was a conversation from Carl Godino, who runs the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, talking about local initiatives and the CASA, the Bay Area CASA initiative, which is an association of affordable housing developers, some of the biggest employers in the Bay Area and governments to try to actually do something around dealing with their housing crisis. At least they've admitted that they have one, so that's the first step in solving it, right? So that's it for me.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, so, so I did attend the typewriter exhibit at the MAC, the way you said that you and Terry went last time. It was absolutely fascinating. It was really fun and very nostalgic to see some of the old typewriters that we all got as high school graduation presents. And, but it actually was not just an exhibit of typewriters, it was really an exhibit about words. And there were some absolutely fascinating uses of words. Very interesting, very interesting. Went to the Community Council Awards. May the volunteer force be with you. We all enjoyed that, and there is no question that this continues to be a very inspirational and aspirational event every year. And congratulations and kudos to Community Council for continuing to host that and to honor what really makes Rancho Cordova run around here. We think the city makes Rancho Cordova run, but in reality, it's our volunteers that do that. We all know that. One of our wonderful local artists invited me to attend an exhibit that she had at Strad Meadery, and I had not been there before, and I had not tasted mead before, and never. And it was really quite interesting. And Strad Meadery, it turns out, has a list of coming events that include doing something with the Maria, it's not Bling Marketplace, Bliss Marketplace, which is over there next door to them on Mercantile. So we need to help them with their publicity because they have some really interesting events coming. I did spend the weekend in Tucson with my mom, and we got snowed on, which was absolutely fascinating. So we all went up the mountain to see the snow. And then got back in time for opening day at Little League, and David and I attended and welcomed all the Little Leaguers from the smallest midget size to the older kids, to the juniors, and handed out their All-Star Awards from last year and really had a great time. This just happens to be Little League and softball season, so that's what I've done.
Thank you, Linda. Well, I was able to go to the National League of Cities convention and the knocking on doors for money to help here in the city. I went to the U.S., and I have just a very basic things right now because I've been trying to go through some of the things that I brought back with me, and there is so much, it's impossible right now after just 2 days to go through this, so I will be bringing more back later. But right now, we went to the U.S. Department of Treasury, the Community Development Financial Institution. There are so many grants that are available, and there are quite a few grants that we've been able to achieve here receive here in Rancho Cordova and use them. We have some grants that we were using for sidewalks. We have grants that we put in the first sidewalk there for the kids going into Kenny High School. There's just so many things going on with that. The National Endowment for the Arts, the partnership division on that. That's Challenge America. They're just part of that was there. We had a nice meeting with the Congressman Ami Berra, and he is helping us go do more with our Mather Veterans Village. He'll be here this week. We'll be talking about that again, and I'm so glad that we're getting close to getting the apartments finished in May. I believe they're supposed to be finished, and we'll have a chance to start getting some of the veterans in off the streets, and that's really good.
Bob, can I ask you something? You said the Mercy development's gonna be done in May, or the transitional's gonna be done in May? Because Mercy, I thought, was almost done.
Mercy's helping the office, run the office like that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah. And the Art Community Center, building bridges across the river, that's community engagement, and the Equity Development Manager is Vaughn Perry. And as I said, there are so many things on this. The one that really got me the most was the U.S. Department of Education. That's the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, a Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiatives, Office of Congressional and Legislative Affairs, Office of Communications and Outreach, and it was all part of the Department of Education. So I have a stack about this big of things that I picked up there at the Department of Education. So it was great to be able to talk to them and to see them and to meet them, and it was nice to be able to pick up all this new information and bring it back with us. And one other thing, we had at our luncheon Friday, our speaker was Lee Dory, who's the chief at the Office of Emergency Services. They moved that to a safer place for the Office of Emergency Services. That's here in Rancho Cordova. Where they placed it is about where the Non-Commissioned Officers Club used to be. And so that's there, and I thanked him for letting us use their big room on July 1 of 2003 to have the city council sworn in. And he said, that's still open, by the way, to the public. So if you know of anyone who's looking for a big place to have meetings or get-togethers like that, they still use that, the Office of Emergency Services. So that was very nice. He did a great job, and there were so many slides he had on that and things that he did with the PowerPoint is just astounding. I think everybody was kind of just sitting back. It was great. So I think I'll go on and pass on to our city manager.
Thank you, Council. I have a very brief report. I was able to accompany Councilmember Gatewood on the conference, the South by Southwest Conference, and first time that I had attended a conference. It's a massive conference with a great deal of focus on technology. And they have created this, what they call the government tracks, and brings all levels of government from local to state to counties. And I think my greatest takeaway from that discussion, or many of the sessions that we were able to attend, that many of the programs or projects that they presented or showcased at the conference are so many of those we are already doing or we have in progress. There was some discussion about smart cities and a great deal of discussion about the smart cities and also some discussions about the Promise program. It was different versions of the Promise program, the college savings accounts, and those kind of things that we seem to be at the forefront of some of those initiatives and the discussions that are happening nationally. So a great learning opportunity, and that's something that we were able to leave with an affirmation of some of the work that we're doing. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
I think we should acknowledge that the reason we don't have David tonight is the fact that he is leading a regional study mission to Washington, D.C. So I'm sure he'll tell us all about it when he gets back.
Thank you, that's a good idea. On to consent calendar items. Consent calendar items consist of matters deemed routine and non-controversial by staff unless a member of the council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration. All items will be approved by one motion. Are there any items the council wishes to pull?
Seeing none, I'll move approval of the consent calendar, items 9.1 through 9.4.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Budge,
Yes.
Councilmember Terry,
Aye.
and Mayor McGarvey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Okay, the consent public hearing items. Consent public hearing items consist of matters deemed routine and uncontroversial for staff unless a member of the council wishes to pull an item for an individual consideration. Items will be approved by one motion. We have one item in the consent public hearing items. And I'm going to open this for a public hearing and ask if there's anyone in the audience. Do you have any cards on this?
I do not.
I would like to pull this to discuss.
Okay,
Do you want to read it in?
I
go
can.
ahead, Linda.
The subject for this item is Watt Communities Alderwood Major Design Review Approval and CEQA Exemption 15182, project number DD 9833, located south of Douglas Road and west of Grant Line Road.
So, can we ask if there's anybody in the audience representing the applicant?
Yes, the applicant's in the audience.
Okay. I had a concern about the elevations. As on a generic basis, it would be so refreshing if somebody would bring us elevations that are not ranch and farmhouse and Spanish. And they're being built in other cities, in other regions. I see no reason that we can't also have something a little more imaginative. But I also had a concern about the extreme plainness of a couple of them, and the fact that one of the elevations that's supposed to be Spanish has absolutely nothing Spanish on it at all, and is dark gray. And so I was just hoping that maybe the applicant, I realize they need to get going. They've spent a lot of time, this was the sewer project, if I remember correctly, and they've spent a lot of time and need to get going, but it would be nice if we could have some more attractive elevations that have been presented.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Nick Sosa, Assistant Planner for City Rancho Cordova. The applicant is in the audience and he could help speak to that. When they originally submitted, we did ask for some more colors, and they did provide us with some color.
The colors are fine. And I see some pops of some blues and whatnot that are being used in other areas now, and that's fine. But the detailing leaves a lot to be desired.
Can we pull up the PowerPoint? We do have some slides that show the elevations, and hopefully that can help us all look at the same image.
Yeah.
No, the PowerPoint was not, but they are in the staff report.
It's in the staff report. The single-story ones were not so bad,
Okay.
but the two stories really left a lot.
I looked at that Friday. Yeah, you're right, the Spanish one that doesn't have a red tile roof.
No, it has absolutely, it's got a little balcony in front of two windows, and that's it.
So,
The farmhouse truly looks like a farmhouse. The ranch house looks so totally generic.
good evening, members, council members. I'm Kevin Webb with Watt Communities. Thank you for letting me present in front of you tonight. I agree. My Spanish is a little on the plain side, and we can look at different articulations on the exterior to work that up a little bit. We really candidly focus more on the ranch and farmhouse as kind of our main looks, and then less on the Spanish. Our goal is to do a good job and present a good house. For us, the attractive house sells better. So I hear your comments, and what we can do is address those with alternate plans, alternate elevations.
The other thing, and this applies to all of them, because at an 8.5 by 11, it was a little difficult to see. But one of the things that we have tried to ensure is that all of the windows are framed out on all four sides of the houses. And I'm not 100% certain that these are.
We work with planning on that, and they are all framed out.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be pops out all the way through.
Okay, super, I appreciate
Can you
that.
go back to the single stories really quick? So is the Spanish style a hip roof?
That there is a hip, yes.
Okay.
So even though it doesn't have a red tile roof, it looks more Spanish.
The ornamentation I can see. Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's the one thing. Are you using the same tile in each one of these, in all three of them?
No, there'll be different tile looks. It reads here the same.
Okay.
And again, these have,
It's hard with renderings.
Yeah.
I used to be a housing developer. I get it.
these will also have solar on the roofs. And
What's
that'll
that?
be, they'll also have solar on them, and we gotta pay attention.
In
to
the
have
tiles or planted on?
planted on.
Okay.
That's what Anthology just did. Was that system? Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with it, and we could condition it to work with staff to come up with some more Spanishy finishes to the Spanish version, because I think I would agree with my colleague that this one, and even here, I like these elevations a lot better than the two-story. But if you can go to the two-story, maybe changing that out for like the red clay tiles or something like the more traditional Spanish look to
There is
them.
one.
And maybe that's what that is. I've dealt with artists that try to put these together. And you can't draw the same conclusions just by looking at a picture like this. So I get it.
Okay, so I'm looking at page 198, which is one of 3 pages of color and materials boards. And the Spanish actually does have a sort of a mock
Okay.
tile roof.
Yeah,
It's
the
not,
renderings just didn't reflect it
yeah,
very well.
it's not very,
But I agree with you, that Spanish here doesn't reflect the Spanish theme that well. We build a lot in Spanish in Southern California, so we get it. So,
okay. So,
Yeah, your materials list looks a lot more
Exactly.
appealing than how that came out.
yeah.
yeah. Okay, so,
Is there any way, can you go back one? Is there any way to, or maybe that Spanish one is that a hip roof on that one? Because the other two are gables.
Well, that's got a combination of hip and gable
Does it? Okay.
on it.
yeah,
Because it looks like in your first and your
The
plan
problem is,
3 you've got.
the coloring in that, there's not a lot of green Spanish houses.
Right.
Out there, so that's, what they did is they did the elevations first, and then they did the color boards, and then they applied the color boards to the elevations.
Well, because we asked you for more colors.
And so, so we can, there's, the articulation in the exterior on Spanish, there's a number of things you can do that make it work. Part of the problem is you don't want to overdo it.
Sure.
And Spanish is an understated theme, and so the more things you add to it, pretty soon it looks like a dollhouse, which we don't want. We want to get the right touch of the Spanish accents and have it all work together.
I was just talking about the roof articulations of
Yeah.
at least between the gables and the
Yeah.
and hips. Just
Are you thinking that there's too much gable look on that?
if all 3 of these, but again, it's hard to tell in your rendering if
Black.
if the Spanish is a hip roof in some point. But
The back end of that is a
avoiding
hip.
having all 3 of your elevations being the same roof style.
Right. So the two top, those are gable end oriented. The Spanish is hipped.
Okay. Okay. It's just hard to
and
tell
I,
from that.
actually, I like the articulation on the second floor. It also, it also means that there's more imagination in the rooms on the interior. But yeah, if you could check the colors and the ornamentation on the Spanish ones, that would especially help.
So we're about to submit our building plans into Plan Check. These exterior things are fairly easy to change and change while we're going through Plan Check.
Right.
Would it be possible to go into Plan Check, submit, and work with planning staff to get?
I would be fine with just conditioning to work with staff to come up with a couple
Yeah.
more and approve it and don't
Yeah.
come back.
No, and, yeah, absolutely.
I don't
I'm
wanna slow you
happy,
down.
I'm happy to make the motion to approve this with the condition that some of the elevations will be revised.
Yeah. And I'll second that motion.
And I see your point, so, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, but no sense in waiting.
one more welcome to Garrett, and I wonder if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation about these homes?
I think they just did the wrong rendering that you get because the materials look different.
I think
So I agree. Let's move it forward.
Okay, we're good.
Comment?
Okay.
Public comment?
So just for clarity, we're just gonna make changes to the Spanish style. Was there any changes to the other elevations that you'd like to
Can
see?
you go to the third one? That's the last one, right?
Yes.
See, and the coloring here for the Spanish
Yeah.
is exactly what it should be looking like.
And this one looks, this particular plan was much better. And personally, the little fence railings along the little front porches are very nice. I like that part.
Look under the houses that says Plan 1.
I agree.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
So it's really Plan 2 on all of them. And basically, thinking about your color board pages, just check the colors that you're planning on using on the Spanish one.
We will.
I don't think anybody's gonna want a green Spanish house anyways.
No.
No.
You live in a dark brown one, don't you?
There are lots of, if you look around this area, there's some really nice sort of Spanish or territorial that are various colors of beige, tan, not taupe, not like Gold River,
That's exactly it.
but with burnt red and some darker browns,
Kind of the southwest feel to it.
more of a southwest feel, yeah. So we have a motion and a second.
Okay, then I'll have one more thing. Anything else for the public? I'm going to close the public hearing. Hearing none, okay, that's closed. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Terry.
Aye.
Councilmember Budge.
Yes.
Councilmember Gatewood.
I'm gonna have to abstain because I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I did read the information.
Okay, thank you. Mayor McGarvey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
Thank you, council.
Council, before we leave the item, just on a couple of these design review issues, we seem to have a bit of a theme emerging, which is the council's actual action on these is quite specific. It's the final step of the development process. It's one where they're presenting a very specific set of packages and approvals. And we have seen before this theme of it being a significant inconvenience to the development community when the council might ask to continue an item. If the council had an interest in the possibility of electing a design review subcommittee or taking some other step so that you might be able to avoid the
Like a planning commission?
the necessity of having these sorts of discussions. Mr. Terry, of course, refers to the fact that he has on a number of occasions raised the possibility of reestablishing a planning commission. As an alternative, the council could simply appoint a subcommittee to make a recommendation that might be included with the staff report with these sorts of items. But there might be a number of ways that you could both land here at this meeting with a very specific council action and a revision that might reflect at least the will of council members who feel the most strongly and who have the most passion for these issues.
I appreciate your comments. I do appreciate your comments about the process. A design review subcommittee seems like a very good idea. I can remember a time early on when our colleague David Sander and I were really quite shocked at some elevations that were being brought to us. And that was a very traumatic meeting. With the subcommittee, we could avoid that.
And of course, the slight exposure that it would avoid to staff is you explaining in words what you would like, them taking the translation to the design package and then perhaps not quite getting it exactly right. And then when the project goes up, you as a council think to yourself, gosh, that's not exactly what we were trying to express into words, but you hadn't seen it on paper. So so that's an item perhaps that we could bring back if it's of interest to the council. We could talk at a senior staff level and see what that might look like. if
Yeah,
that was of
personally, I
interest.
would be opposed to any subcommittee like that. I think for two reasons. One is that it puts an enormous amount of influence in the hands of a smaller group of the council. And I also think it really is a great opportunity to engage more members of the public in giving feedback on these things to maybe perfect them more before they come here. But it kind of, to me, it ends up creating those fiefdoms of two people that get to see everything ahead of time and make all of their changes that they want. I don't mind this discussion up here. I would prefer it not to happen as often by the time it gets to us. But some of us take more of an interest in it than others. But I just think that it. If I harken back to my time on the school board and I was on a budget committee, we crafted the budget before it ever got to the school, to the rest of the school board. I had an enormous amount of influence, I and some of my colleagues, over how those things are crafted and what things were recommended to the board ultimately during very difficult budget time. So to me, I'm not a fan of creating that kind of undue influence or giving that kind of undue influence, because I don't want to be on the committee, first off. But I also don't think that any of my colleagues should be that much more prepped on items like this than I am.
So I do understand Mr. Terry's comments, and of course, a lot of us know that on special districts, committees, personnel committees, budget committees, the subcommittee process is extremely common. We have exactly the same thing at the Park District. And he's absolutely right. I always served because finances is not my strong suit. When I was on the Park District Board, I always served on the Budget Committee because that was my way to really delve into it and find out how the Park District was really running. So it was an extreme education process for me. But it's definitely a conversation we can have.
I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, I think that this conversation wasn't the lengthy conversation that we had about the Chili's years ago, that ended in a split vote. I mean, I don't think we're back there, but I do think that as we're getting more and more of these subdivisions coming along, or plan updates and other things like that for some of these other subdivisions, we probably have enough work for a dedicated group of citizens to get a little bit more involved in this and maybe head off some of these conversations and questions. Because again, staff can only do so much to anticipate what we're going to ask when we get up here. But a fresh set of 10 eyeballs on these things might have a different opinion.
And my last comment would be that we really only see these things every 4 months or so. And
hopefully more often.
Everything else is approved. But I would not have been bringing this up at this point if I had not been out of town. I would have certainly given staff the heads up that I had some concerns, so that they could have talked more strongly with the applicants to see what could have been done. And perhaps the applicants of their own choice would have brought a little bit different design package if they had known. So.
Okay, then just with the design review committee idea, with the planning commission back again, and that sort of an idea, I think I'd like to have all 5 council members to get together and look at this to see if it's something we would like to do.
Yes,
So I
I'm
think-
sure David has strong opinions also.
Yeah. So for right now, I think we can at least hold on to that and get some more ideas maybe. But we voted for this, I believe, correct? Okay. then thank you for the discussion and the ideas. I think all of them are very good, but we need to have everybody here, I think. So I'm going to go on to item number 11, public hearing items, and up our city clerk to announce the subject, please.
Presentation of the draft 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
All right, thank you. And ask the staff for a report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Stefan Heisler with the City of Rancho Cordova Community Development Department. Here with me is Patrice Clemens from Michael Baker, our CDBG consultant. So tonight, just to give you an overview of the CDBG process. So tonight, March 18, we're visiting you for council discussion and also for public input. Tonight is the public hearing for public comment period. And then with your discussion tonight, we want to just provide you with a picture of the CDBG proposal for this coming program year, 2019 and 2020. And then after tonight, March 29 is the end of the 30-day public comment period. And then April 15, we're scheduled to have the council adopt the final annual action plan. And then on May 15, or before May 15, we would end up submitting the annual action plan and certifications to HUD for the annual action plan. And then just as a reminder, the funding limits to CDBG, there is a 20% limit on program administration, up to 20%. There is a up to 15% limit on public services programs, and there is no limit on capital programs. So looking at the draft budget, we want to take a conservative approach. We don't always know, we don't ever really know what HUD is going to give us as an allocation each year. So as you can see, 2016, 2017, through the last 3 years, we've been above 500,000. And last year, it was actually an increase from the years before. We have not seen an increase like that for several years. So this year, we are going with a conservative estimate of a $500,000 program year budget with a minimal amount of rollover funds. And then with the caveat that whatever was not spent in the administration this current year would roll over into, or could roll over into capital programs this year. So the estimate of program administration is 20% for this coming year. In the public services, that 15% piece of CDBG, we're providing you sort of a picture of what we funded last year and what we're proposing to fund this year. A number of our programs are on a 2-year budget cycle. About 4 out of the 5 programs are on a 2-year budget cycle. So this 2019-2020 year would be the second year for those programs. The one that is not on a 2-year program was the only applicant this year for a public services program, which was the self-help housing, fair housing, and renters helpline, which we have funded for years in the past. And since we are looking at a conservative budget estimate, those estimates for 2019-2020 are a little bit lower than what we funded this current year.
Steph, can I ask a quick question? So we know what CDBG is going to be for the next year because we have a budget, right?
We're estimating right now. We won't know the HUD allocation for what, Patrice, maybe a month or 2?
HUD has not distributed their allocations yet, so we don't know right now.
So
what
they
our
have their
is.
budget, but they haven't said what they're going to do with each of the other ones. Because as an entitlement city, wouldn't we know how much we're getting? No?
They haven't told us yet.
Okay.
In years past, we may have been notified at this point, but HUD released a notice about a month or 2 ago letting us know they were going to be late in letting us know what our budget was. So at this point, we do not know what our budget is.
Okay, thanks.
So if we find that the allocation is greater than what we're estimating here tonight, all of these programs would then be increased proportionally. So it would stay within that 15% cap on public services, but these programs would receive proportionally more.
We're talking about like back up, if you go back on that, on the Meals on Wheels from 37 down to the 31,500, they could go back up to 37 again? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it would go up proportionally. So it may go above what we funded this year if we received more allocation, but we'll wait to see what the allocation is.
Okay, because ones like that, the Meals on Wheels, we've been able to help some of the senior citizens, and that's the only hot meal they get. So I don't want to have that one of the things that will be cut either. So as soon as we find out from HUD, yes, I know HUD's getting kind of hard to figure out anymore. And so we'll have to see if another month or two before they tell us what they're going to give us. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. On the capital programs and projects, so this is the rest of the allocation. This is the capital programs that don't have a limit. We received 4 applications this year. They are the same capital programs that we funded last year. We received 2 from the City of Rancho Cordova for rental housing inspection and the general code enforcement program. We also received an application from Rebuilding Together for the critical repair program, and then also the public facilities, ADA sidewalks, which is a city public works program. So under the allocation estimate of $500,000, this is what staff is proposing for discussion tonight. This reflects the amounts that we funded in years past for code enforcement. And because we're looking at a little bit less funding this year as an estimate, we've shown a reduction from this current year in the public facilities and the Rebuilding Together critical repair program. This year, we were funding public facilities at $100,000 and Rebuilding Together at $150,000.
So, remind me, I don't recall Rebuilding Together being funded by CDBG. I thought that was Measure H funding that we were using.
They're getting both. So they're getting a Measure H grant for their rebuild day.
Okay, right.
And then CDBG is funding the critical repair.
When did we
critical
start doing
systems
this?
We
missed
started
it last year?
I believe we funded this critical repair program for either 1 or 2 program years prior to 1920 with Rebuilding Together. Yes.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. Well, I'll say what I always say at this, and Cyrus already knows I'm going to say it. The code enforcement positions really, I feel really strongly that those staffing like that internally needs to be in our budget. It should be coming out of the general fund. If it's important enough to have it, it should be there. And if that means we're increasing Rebuilding Together or doing more ADA or funding some other commercial project of some sort, that's where we should be getting that money from. Because essentially, and it's never actually happened, but what is it, 15 years in a row, the administrations have proposed either to drastically slash and cut CDBG or get rid of it completely. So to rely on internal staffing like this just shouldn't be, to me, it's just not right to have it coming out of here. But I guess realistically, if we could at least get one of them off this year, I think that would be great. And again, I know Cyrus and I talked, hopefully there are some alternatives that we can talk about, but, and again, it's not saying that these aren't important, it's just saying that we should be budgeting for those ourselves with our own tax dollars. And if we're running surpluses every year, we should be able to find somewhere to put that.
I guess my only comment is that this, the $80,000 shown for each position they're not the full funding.
Okay.
So they're being subsidized through the general fund. So one option could be, and we've talked about this, maybe for this funding cycle to cut back the code enforcement to $100,000 and allocate the additional $60,000 to other programs.
So maybe we do this. I like that idea. Maybe take the general code enforcement officer out. The rental housing program, I mean, essentially what we're doing is we're enhancing health and safety that's going along with the critical repairs that Rebuilding Together are doing. So I see kind of a synergy there comparatively to we just want more code enforcement and we're going to pay for it here because we're allowed to. Yeah. And I know, to Bob's point, if we have savings in this program, we can't go move that to like Meals on Wheels, right? I just want to make sure that we're explaining this.
That's correct. So any amounts here are stuck here in the capital programs. We've already maxed out the public services bucket.
So what else could we do with
We could do
$100,000
more, we could do more sidewalks.
Yeah. So
Is that what you would recommend?
We could definitely do additional infrastructure projects. We also, one of the things that we come upon very often in terms of the critical repair program, sometimes, we get to the last dollar and we find some critical need in the community and we don't have the ability to address it. So if we could have some flexibility, if the actual funding amounts are higher, that to make that adjustment, that would be something that we will appreciate.
Okay. And I know that they applied, Habitat for Humanity is going to apply for Measure H funds anyways to do relatively similar things like this. I know we're really late in the stage and we probably can't add something right now, but there are other partners out there that we can engage beyond Rebuilding Together. I mean, I do think it's funny that I didn't notice that they were being funded by CDBG, but it was only, 5 years ago when, VSP walked in here and we gave them a plaque for, painting somebody's house and redoing a bunch of dry rot. And David goes, there ought to be a nonprofit that does that. We need to go find somebody. I'm like, well, there is one and it's Rebuilding Together. So the relationship has come a long way, but they're not getting to every house in the city. So if there were other partners, like I know we're working with Sierra Service Project, and then, Habitat is very interested in trying to do more here. So I don't know, between all of those, if there's a way to get to some more of these broken windows, I think we should try.
And fix more sidewalks.
Okay.
Sure, and fix more
I
stuff.
think. Okay, so with that caveat, we will adjust, we will modify the amounts to reflect the 100,000 for code enforcement on the rental housing. And the remainder will go to probably, I'm hearing that mostly on the infrastructure, the sidewalks, okay?
I do want to.
Or, no, I would still say the critical repair program, I mean, that's health and safety of our residents that are here. So to me, that's the priority. If you ran out of houses, go ahead and fix some sidewalks too. But I know we also have a decent sized budget for that.
I do want to add for Carrie, although she's not here in the audience, but when she has the two separate programs, it's not necessarily one physical body that does that. It's the staff that together gets funded through that. I don't know if it would cause some operational hardship for her if we eliminated one of those, but if we split it between,
Well, no,
split
so
50/50
let's back
between
up,
the
because I
same.
want to make sure that I understand what Cyrus is suggesting. We're not losing the staff. We're going to pay for it out of the general fund. So we're going to have another workshop pretty soon to talk about code enforcement priorities. I'm not talking about going down in funding. I'm just stop taking it from here.
Yeah, it's the 100,000 allocation. We figured this is
Right.
not a council decision or discussion. That's how it's done.
Yeah.
It's the 100,000 that comes from CDBG. So,
Yeah, I'm not suggesting cutting.
Oh, sure.
I'm just saying
Right.
pay for it somewhere else.
so we will manage that. The only other comment I would like to make is that one of your colleagues, Vice Mayor Sander, deeply cares about this program, and we have to be assured that we can address that at the budget time through the budget discussions, because this is clearly a priority for one of your colleagues.
I don't want there to be any mistake. This is a critical priority for me too. It's just in using this funding for it, I just think there's better things and more creative things we can do than just paying ourselves to do stuff that is core to our services.
There's also, when we're talking about the Measure H money, we're talking about the general fund money, we're talking about everything, but we also have been very fortunate in some of the grants that we have received. I got a phone call from a gentleman, Harry Madden. He worked with us on the incorporation, and he has a house on Coloma Road, and he thought his house was going to be level because he got something from the city which he didn't understand. And what it is, there was a $101.8 million grant we got for sidewalks that they're putting in along Coloma Road around his house. So he's much happier now that he's getting sidewalks rather than losing his house. But, it's $1.8 million for sidewalks and that kind of a grant kind of a thing. It makes a difference on what we're talking about here. I mean, right now, we can guess on what we're going to get from HUD. And that's all we're doing right now, is guessing that we can do this, or maybe we can't. Maybe we'll use some of the money out of general fund. But we can't just, depend on grants. But some of the grants we have had already, and I think that's something that we can definitely use, because we haven't used all of the grant money yet. So we can look at that also as part of our allocations for the different things we have here.
So in addition to making that suggested change, I want to also be clear that if we do receive more than the $500,000 allocation, what staff is proposing is we would keep the code enforcement piece at what you've suggested here tonight, We would also fund the public facilities up to the typical 100,000 that we've done in the years past. And then the additional allocation would likely then go to the critical repair system program.
Or another approach would be to increase them proportionally, like what we did with on the program side.
I would do more repairs. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
If we can find them, if you can't find them, because I know sometimes, some people just won't take the help, then yeah, you can do more sidewalks.
Okay, then I'm going to open this up to public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this? Do you have any cards on this?
I do not.
Last call. Closing public hearing, and ask our city clerk for roll call, please.
Oh, this is just a discussion item.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll bring it back on
I'm
April
ahead on
15 with
that,
the
right?
final.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody, for hearing me out.
Okay, on to item 12.1. Ask our city clerk to announce the subject, please.
Presentation of Cordova Park Safe Route to School Project and Chase Coloma Plaza Improvement Project.
Staff, you're here. Albert.
Good evening, Mayor McGarvey and council members. Albert Stricker with the Public Works Department. And the city of Rancho Cordova has been incredibly successful in identifying where there are gaps in our sidewalk infrastructure and filling those to create better connections between neighborhoods, schools, businesses, and transit, just to name a few. The two projects that we'll be presenting to you this evening do all of those things, and then plus another factor to them. The work that will be performed at the intersection of Chase and Coloma is going to have many safety and aesthetic improvements, but it's also the beginning of a gateway to access the Hagen Park, Soil-Borne Farms, and the various school facilities. And the next slide, please. So this evening, we'll be presenting to these projects for City Council consideration, and we would appreciate any input. We'll incorporate all council input into the plans, and then our intention would then to send this out to bid for construction. And for more details on that, I will hand it over to Kwok Nam and Edgar Medina.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Edgar Medina, Senior Civil Engineer, Public Works Department. So as Albert mentioned, is we have two projects that we want to discuss. The project area is in the Chase, Coloma, Folsom area. And as mentioned, the project in of itself is going to be providing connections to local schools, to the local businesses, the RT stations that are along Folsom, and some of the neighborhood in and around the project areas. So what's highlighted in the circle is in the Chase Coloma Plaza project, and then the more octagonal is the Cordova Park Safe Routes to School. Kwok will discuss in detail the Chase Coloma project.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Albert. Good evening, Mayor McGarvey, council members. First, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present this important project to you. And also, I'm pretty passionate about this project. I am a former alumni of both Mills and Cordova High, and I've had personal experience navigating in this area with the high volumes of pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles traveling through this area. So I've seen all the challenges. I think you guys are all aware that there's an existing a plaza over here at the corner of Chase and Coloma. Not too much to look at right now, but on the top right corner is a picture of that plaza. Next to it on the left is a metal beam guardrail protecting the sidewalk along Coloma Road. To the bottom of that is the sidewalk and bike lane on Coloma Road, and the bottom right is Chase Drive. So some of the improvements we'll be making is we'll be adding painted green bike lane and crossing facilities. And enhanced crosswalk facilities, separated pedestrian sidewalks, enhanced plaza area. We'll be adding some concrete bollards that are separated, separates the sidewalks. And then to finish it off, we'll be adding some shrubs, ornamental grasses, a couple trident maple trees, landscape ground cover, landscaping bollards, boulders. So in summary, this project's gonna add safety to the public, provides connectivity, enhances the community, and promotes healthy living. The total project budget is approximately $1.1 million with approximately 500 from community enhancement, 270,000 in highway safety improvement funds, and 300,000 in local funds. And I'll turn it back to Edgar.
So do you want to take questions as we go along, or do you want to save them to the end?
Totally up to council's preference.
I have one concern about this intersection.
Okay.
And because I take a grandkid to school from time to time, and I know what time I have to be there in order to not get into the traffic, which is a problem also. But if we go back to the slide with the improvements to that intersection, this is perfect.
Oh, this way?
So it is my impression, well, first, let me preface this by saying, and Cyrus will remember this, as we were improving Folsom Boulevard, and this goes back for really most of our 15 years, because we had done some improvements early on before we started the main remodel project. But what we've tried to do is ensure that where we have 3- or 4-way intersections, that we not follow the county model of only putting a pedestrian walk on 1 or 2 sides, that we put pedestrian walkways on all sides where people could cross. And it is my impression, especially because of the flood of kids between the high school and the junior high and gardens, it is my impression that people are walking across here too. I mean, they're kids, okay? So when the light turns green, they're gonna walk wherever they can. And personally, it seems to me that we ought to facilitate crossing in all locations. The other concern I have is the fact that I know that, well, actually, I'm gonna express 2. First of all, it is critical that we make this intersection look better. There's no question about it. However, there is an interesting dynamic that goes on there in the morning. Officer Tracy parks right there on the sidewalk, on the little plaza thing, right here. And she makes sure that the kids don't do things like jaywalk or walk between the cars, as I witnessed 2 young ladies do one day, and she set them over by her automobile, and they had a chat about how that's not a safe thing to do. So, so my first question, so that would be my second question. How do you envision ensuring that our school resource officers have a safe place where they can continue that kind of educational contact with the kids, number one? And then number 2, it seems unfortunate, and I'm sure this has to do with the school district, but it's wonderful to be able to do the separated sidewalk, but to only do it for 50 feet and then transition back to the normal leftover sidewalk just seems a shame. It would be really good if there were a way to work with the school district and get a part of the Mills Field right there to keep the separated sidewalk going down Chase Drive.
Define separated sidewalk. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
See the little part with the blue part with the green trees?
Yeah.
let me take a step back.
Oh,
to
you
the
mean it's
previous
separated
slide
with,
right there.
Yeah.
with grass in front of?
Yeah, think about Folsom Boulevard. Think how we have the
Yeah, okay.
off-street
I know what you're talking about.
bike and pedestrian.
Anatolia Boulevard looks like that and some other ones, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Separated with shrubbery or green.
Yeah.
Got it.
Especially in a place like this where the traffic can be extremely heavy and it makes the pedestrian, actually what was happening, Donald, along Folsom Boulevard, we didn't have people using the sidewalk because the sidewalk was all about this big. And quite frankly, we didn't have sidewalk. We had driveways connected by little strips of walk.
Yeah.
So people were walking in the parking lots as opposed to walking on the sidewalk because they just flat out didn't feel safe.
Well, I will say, when you talk about separated sidewalks, the new Rayleigh's Center where you pull down in Sunrise Douglas, they have it separated, so they have planters there, right? But there's no break in them to walk over to the sidewalk.
Right.
So everyone's just walking through the plants to get onto the sidewalk because the only entries are at the very end. So that wasn't done that great. The one I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. The one thing, and I think Cyrus and I, you and I talked about this. I love the painted bike lanes. Is there any way to incorporate the colors of the high school into those colors? Do they have to be green? Can we make them red? Can we do something?
Red and black.
Because green is what, I mean, you see green downtown. I think we've talked about painting them yellow to reflect
everywhere.
gold. So I've been told that we don't have to do green, and everyone does green. And
Everyone does
if there was a
green.
way to do
Red and black.
red and
We could do
red and
black
gray or
stripes.
something like that. So you've already got yellow and black stripes there. As you're thinking about this, just think of that and see if there's not a way that we can kind of theme these. Because and again, I love how those look, and for the most part, even downtown Sacramento, they've held up pretty well, the paint and everything. But considering this is the first one I've had come before my eyes to look at, that would be the one thing I would hope that we could kind of figure out. And even like the coloring schemes of, and again, I know you're not doing blue with those things, but even the colors of the bollards and things like that, see if we can't get that to more reflect the school colors of Cordova High and Mills. I honestly, I don't even know what their colors are.
Green and yellow.
Okay, well, there you go. Ah! So you already did it. Is it really?
So we already did.
You already thought of it. Okay, got it. All right, we'll figure out a way between the highs. Yeah, so all four of those colors: green, yellow, black, and red. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, and then I guess the only other thing, and I don't think it's a necessity now, but it would be nice to look at maybe even placing some or have some space for a public art installation of some sort, so a statue or something. I'm sure till it gets stolen by a rival high school and ends up, well, that's what we did when we were in high school. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we couldn't put some sort of public art there. But I don't think that's critical to this installation. And it is a horribly designed intersection anyway, so these improvements at a minimum we need to do, and just keep an eye on what else we could do.
The masonry wall, although it gets run into from time to time, but it would be a nice location for another mural.
So if I put my school board hat back on, I would say, a big wall like that kids can hide behind. And
Oh, no, they can't. The other side of it is the people's yard, and they can't get into
okay,
it.
which one are we talking? I'm sorry. I thought you were
okay.
talking about putting up a masonry wall.
No. The masonry
fencing.
wall, the masonry wall is right here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's already
I know.
there.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
My only word of caution, this is near many little kids and children running around. Let's be sure we're not creating a distraction for drivers.
That's a good point.
I mean, you just have to.
This is when they're
because
checking out the mural.
every time you put some piece of art out there, there's going to be some rubbernecking when people are driving by and you have kids around.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So we could put a statue to Officer Tracy over there in the plaza. Chad's grinning. His thumbs up.
I think that would make her ear.
And besides, Officer Tracy is a Cordova grad also.
Well, we could just put a statue of her tricked out golf cart there.
There we go. There'll be space for it.
Have you seen what I'm talking about? Speakers and lights and everything.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, no, great improvement. Been looking forward to this project for a while.
And thank you very much for the input. With regard to the separated sidewalks, that is a consideration as we continue to progress up Chase with future projects. And we'll definitely touch bases with our police department to make sure that they're accommodated for their observations that they do. And we'll look into the ramps as well. And definitely we'll look into the colors to see what options there are to make it fit into the existing environment as well as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we move forward to the second project, which is the Cordova Park Sidewalk project, which is also state grant funded through the state active transportation program. The project area is highlighted in red. I would just want to be a little bit clear that the project area is the perimeter roads, that being Dulceto, Ellenbrook, Malaga, and then the frontage road on Coloma. So as we'll see in this project, you'll see that primarily it's a sidewalk improvement project with two key intersections to consider. So, and those being the intersection of Coloma and Dulceto and Coloma and Malaga. Both have unique, similar to Chase Coloma, have a unique angle as people approach that intersection. As you will see in the photos of the existing conditions, Malaga or Dulceto has no sidewalks. The kids are coming from the elementary school and the high school. They tend to walk along the frontage road and in the local streets since there is no sidewalks. So this project is going to be improving those by making those connections for the pedestrian. In terms of the key design at Coloma and Dulceto, what we're going to do is we're going to extend that connection as you're coming south on Coloma from the school. We're going to put two crosswalks that cross the Dulceto intersection and then the frontage road. And then we'll be putting in two bulb outs, so it'll be like a raised island bulb outs that provide a clear path, and it also reduces just the travel distance for kids or pedestrians to be crossing the street.
Are these like the ones we did in Lincoln Village by Amwin?
Yes.
The big, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I have to say, it strikes me that we've got such a large volume of kids that they're going to walk on the frontage road anyway because they're protected from the traffic by the trees, by the oleanders.
Frontage road is what I was talking about earlier with Harry Madden, right in, this thing works. Nope. Anyway, right there on Coloma Road, yeah, that's where the sidewalks are going in, but he was told anyway. So that would be something, and it's on the frontage road, you're right, and they would be walking on there with that big separation from the big Coloma Road and that side road, but there are some sidewalks. They're supposed to be going in there. That's what he was told. Is that right, Albert?
That's this, right?
Correct. That will be this project that provides new sidewalk installation all the way around the perimeter of the red rectangle that you see there.
Well, and the point is that this area right here, that's where the hedge stops.
Yeah.
And all the rest of this is open. I brought up on Apple Maps because I just couldn't picture it myself. But this whole red area here, I mean, that's where the hedge stops. So it starts right about here so that they have a safer crossing. Because they're really walking down here.
Yeah. So did you stop at Ellenbrook simply because that's where the money ran out?
We stopped at Ellenbrook. Well, we didn't necessarily stop at Ellenbrook. The manner in which the grant application was applied for, identified the key routes for the schools to get, or the pedestrians to get to the schools. So Ellenbrook, Malaga, Coloma and Dulceto were identified as the key routes for those children. So both those three, talk about Dulceto, Ellenbrook and Malaga will have sidewalks on both sides of the street, and then Coloma will have just on the frontage side, the residential side.
Okay, so you're not doing
So Garrett.
It's not Benny, but yeah, Garrett and,
Gilbert.
yeah, you're not doing those.
Those are not being done as part of this project.
Okay, all right. Okay, I got it.
One of the other things that this location provides is a little bit of safe haven for the vehicular travel. So as you'll see, the bullbots actually allow for a space to be designed into this intersection. So as opposed to the current condition, someone on the frontage road going northbound and wants to go down South Coloma almost has to do a U-turn. So this provides a little bit of refuge for them to actually get into a normal condition before they make that right turn onto Coloma. So there is a benefit for the vehicular travel movement as well. As we get to Malaga, a similar concept in the sense that we're going to provide new crosswalks, raised median bulbouts, and we're going to also improve the intersection signal to accommodate these movements. So you'll see that as you're coming down on the frontage road, those who are coming southbound would have to, as they do now, are forced to make a right-hand turn to go around Malaga and into the neighborhood and or into the back way into the commercial sites. As a recap, this project, it provides safety improvements for both the pedestrian and the traveling public, provides some of those connections to that currently have gaps, an enhancement to the neighborhood, and promotes healthy living. As mentioned earlier, we do have a $1.9 million state grant with $610,000 local funds, bringing us to a total budget of just over $2.5 million. Our steps moving forward is receiving the input from the mayor and council and incorporate those into the plans with intent of advertising the Chase Coloma project as quickly as possible. Come back to council in early spring with a contract to award and begin construction with the Chase Coloma project immediately after school finishes to maximize the summer break. The Cordova Park Safe Routes to School project is overlapping, but it's lagging a little bit just to finish up the design here in April and then advertise in late April ideally and then open bids in the summer and then immediately come to council for an award of contract and start construction in the late summertime. With that, we will open up. If there's more questions, we will be more than happy to answer.
Go ahead, Donald or
I'm good.
Garrett.
I asked what I want.
Good.
Great job.
Linda?
I don't think so.
All righty.
Wish we had 10 million more to do the rest of it, but
That's
this
for
is
sure.
this is where I would start. So good job. Do you need a
Okay,
motion?
then, no comments, and as for a motion.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I apologize, there's actually no action item on this. This is only just to receive
Okay.
input
this
from
is-
council.
Presentation, okay.
That's what.
Okay, I know, I'm sorry. No sidewalk along Coloma in that little stretch between Chase and Dulceto where Newton comes in, correct?
Councilmember Budge, there is, on that little frontage piece, there is going to be a new sidewalk that connects from Dulceto to the Chase Coloma project.
Okay,
So there is
all right.
a new stretch of sidewalk there.
Okay, super, great, thank you. Yeah, because that's where you're but you've got to go around the creek. Okay. Very good, thank you.
Okay, anything else on this one? Well, thank you very much for your information.
Yeah,
And
this
I
is,
think we're
actually,
gonna have
this is
some,
terrific.
it'll be interesting to see how many of the kids keep on going across the street on the red light anyway, but maybe there'll be a few.
Not if Officer Tracy has something to say about it.
All right, thank you. Okay, 12.2, that's the city clerk to announce the subject, please.
Fiscal year 2018-2019 mid-year financial report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Kim Duran, Cara Giorgio, Administrative Services Director, and I'm here this evening to present to you the fiscal year 2018-19 mid-year financial report. And given that we've had a fairly extensive financial update recently at our budget study session, my report this evening will be brief, and I'll touch on a few high-level items, but please, if you have any questions, do stop me. So we typically do a mid-year financial report because mid-year is a good time to kind of take stock and measure how we're doing in comparison to our adopted budget. As I've mentioned previously, our mid-year budget report here tends to be slightly less informative than it might be in another city for a couple of reasons. One, there's a slight timing delay. Our largest revenue source is property tax, and we don't receive our first installment of that until January, so there's nothing to report mid-year. And then also the nature of us being a contract city, we are heavily dependent on the timely receipt of invoices and payment of those invoices to actually know what our expenses are. And typically, kind of at the mid-year point, we're still lagging between 6 to 8 weeks behind. So overall, we do our best to try to provide a thorough report, but we are still kind of just picking up some of those expenses as we get into the spring. So starting with just overall budget trends, as we talked about at our recent budget study session, the common belief right now among economic forecasters is that we're not quite yet headed for a recession, but we are headed for an economic slowdown. And looking at our revenues in the current year, we are starting to see some signs of a slowdown, and we're starting to see some of our larger revenues plateau. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then even with the revenues starting to slow down, we're still seeing costs remaining high. We're seeing construction costs remaining high, and overall the demand on resources continuing. So getting into revenues by source, these are our broad-based categories of general fund revenues. Our total general fund revenue budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year was increased $622,000 over the prior year. So our budget stands at just under $51.6 million for revenues. And keeping in mind that this does not include Community Enhancement Fund revenues. So over 3/4 of our general fund budget comes from taxes, and I'm going to talk a bit more about taxes on the next slide. The next category down is franchise fees, and franchise fees are the payments that we collect from the city's garbage and private utility service providers to operate in the city. And this category tends to be pretty consistent from year to year, and we do the majority of our collections in the spring. The next category, licenses, permits, and fees. This includes things such as the business license, animal license, and also our building permits. And one area that we are starting to see a slowdown on this current year is with building permits. Our fiscal activity year to date is about 10% below the same point last year. And then dropping down fines and forfeitures and the rest of these categories on the slide, many of these are dependent on the city billing for these, and so overall, they're kind of subject to the same timing delays I talked about earlier with the expenses. But overall, we see our revenues tracking in these categories to meet the budget at year end. The next slide is tax revenues by source, and these are some of our largest tax revenues, starting again with property tax. And as I already mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, as of December 31st, we have not received any property tax from the county. We get our first remittance in January. However, overall, the budget is $500,000 higher than it was in the last fiscal year, and we do expect that we will achieve the property tax budget for this year. Sales tax is the next largest category at 27%, trending slightly below the same time last year with sales tax. And as we discussed at the budget study session, we heard about some of the challenges that we're having with the State Board of Equalization's rollout of a new system, the collection of those payments and the allocation. So we're still working through some of those delays. So those are some of the things contributing to sales tax. So we might see an uptick as those payments start to come in. But at this time, we're still slightly below, but believe that we'll meet the budget. Transient occupancy tax, this is our 12% tax on occupants of the city's hotels, 7.5% of our budget. Overall, these are tracking basically on par with this time last year. We are seeing a slight shift between the annexation area and the non-annexation area. So overall, we track because of the because of the TOT sharing. Revenues in the annexation area are up over last year, and the revenues in the non-annexation area are down below last year. So certain hotels in the city, certain areas are performing better than others at this time. We also did anticipate in TOT that we were going to have the opening of a new hotel this year. That has since been delayed, so we budgeted for those revenues. We don't believe that is slated to open in September. However, we think we're going to get really close to the budget in that category. So at this point, we don't see any cause for concern there. And then finally, utility users tax. This is our voter-approved tax on utility bills. Also stands at 7.3%. And overall, UUT is trending slightly below this time last year. We did account for that when we put the budget together, just because this is due to just changes in consumer behavior, with conservation being more common and changes with cable television and so on. So we are seeing a slight downturn with that, but that was anticipated. So overall, we think we will meet the budget.
Cable television is not charging less.
No, people are moving away and moving to Hulu and Netflix and so forth, which are exempt.
Are they?
Because it's internet. So moving to the expenditure side, overall total general fund expenditures in this fiscal year were increased $567,000 from the prior to a budget of $51.4 million. And as of December 31st, the expenditures were at 33% of budget. The first category, personnel cost, which includes salary and benefits for all city employees, are trending slightly higher than the same time last year, which was anticipated as we filled some positions. However, we still have a vacancy rate of about 10% right now, so we do anticipate that we will come in below budget in that category. The next category is operating costs, and this is somewhat of a catch-all category and includes our professional and contract services, including the police contract. And that category is trending above the same time last year. However, that's attributable to a timing difference with the payment of the December payment for the sheriff's contract. Last year did not have that payment. Overall, this category tends to be slow in building up the expenditures just because of the timing difference or the lag time in the receipt of the payment of those invoices. And then the next category, revenue neutrality, we don't make that payment until the spring, but we will make that, so that will come in these last 6 months. And then the last two categories are trending as expected, and we expect them to end the year at budget. So shifting gears from the general fund, I want to spend just a minute talking about Community Enhancement Fund. The city anticipated that it would receive $8.1 million of Community Enhancement Fund sales tax revenues this year. And our latest estimates show that we're going to be actually closer to $8.3 million. So we are anticipated to exceed the budget in this category. As part of the annual CEF allocation, a significant portion of the revenues are set aside into a legacy fund to support large-scale community projects. And the slide here just shows what some of those monies are currently set aside for, including girls softball at $3 million, the Hagen Pool Project at $3 million, the Civic Center Project at $1 million, Rancho Cordova Little League upgrades at $3 million, and the Sacramento Children's Museum enhancements currently at $200,000. So that's where the legacy fund balance is currently allocated, which leaves a remaining just under $1 million remaining. And so moving into the 2019-20 fiscal year Community Enhancement Fund timeline, the application window, the grant application window for external grants closed this past Friday, and staff will be sharing a list of applications received at the next council meeting. And then it is anticipated that the CEF process will run concurrent with the budget, with the plan of adopting both the budget and Community Enhancement Fund budget on June 3rd.
Could we suggest to Stacy that she not print the 5-inch binder unless somebody really wants one? Just save her the trouble of doing that.
Do you have any suggestions of what information you would like to see?
Well, since I'm the only one that doesn't read all this stuff on the tablet thingy, yeah, I'm good with a list, just a hard copy list.
She actually does a very good job of providing a summary sheet, so
Oh,
that's,
yeah. Right, and
that's the
so-
one
That's
we-
what I
And so-
rely on for 90% of what
Yeah, so then whatever any of us want to check out, then we can go to whatever the master is on the internet somewhere and find it.
What I would really like is if using PDF, you could do one that actually has chapters and notes on it, to where you could, if you're looking for this one, you can go to the table of contents and hit it and actually go to it. I don't know how much work that really is, but I stick mainly to that Excel sheet that the
Yeah.
big one that has
Yeah,
a
the
little bit
Excel
of a
sheets are
description
great.
to them. But then having reference to being able to go back and look more in depth at the, 4 or 5, honestly, that I probably read completely. But I don't tend to read 89 of them.
I'll pass that along. Thank you. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, staff, for all of the information you've given us this evening. Our next item is the council request for future agenda items. Do we have any? Then we will now be adjourned.